Hey guys, Sarah here. So first thing that you were probably noticing is that this is very different than any other video I have ever done. Well, that's because this video I'm wanting to do a small series on my work in progress of making an Inuyasha cosplay. Now, Inuyasha is obviously a character that I care very much about, and the series, absolutely love it so very much, and I've wanted to do an Inuyasha cosplay for as long as I've been interested in cosplay, I will say, which has definitely been a long time so far. And especially with my friend, who you know as Sarah, from time to time you may hear me call her Yen, from the Fan Expo videos. She has a Kagome costume and has been wanting an Inuyasha for her Kagome for also probably as long as she has been cosplaying. So I decided that today was finally the day to get started on that. And so let's get started on it right off the bat. So the first thing that I do when it comes to making cosplay is I iron all of the fabric. I mean, first thing that you're going to want to do obviously is find a pattern, find your fabric, but that's a whole video unto itself. So the first step is to iron out your fabric. Now, something that you saw me do just a couple of minutes ago, and you'll see me do a couple of times during my ironing phase, is with a chalk pencil, I'm marking where you might see snags in the fabric or imperfections of some kind, because unfortunately I had this fabric for probably a good solid year because it was on sale the last time I went to Fabricland, and I knew I was going to need it eventually, so I bought a whole bunch of it, and it's been a little manhandled from it constantly being moved around so much. It wasn't a bag the whole time, but things can happen, so snags have happened, so that's why you'll see me from time to time with the chalk pencil going over and just marking anywhere I see a snag or imperfection in case I really don't want that to show up on the cosplay. Okay, now it's getting too hot for the sweater. We gotta take this off. Woo! Yes, working with that hot iron, it's a little hot in there all of a sudden now. Yes, working in the kitchen is absolutely fantastic way to do this. One thing that I will mention saying that I was doing this in my kitchen is cleaning the environment happened a lot, like sweeping and making sure the floor was clean, because as you'll see when I do the laying out of the pattern, I was working on the floor a lot, and that means that you'll need to, oh, I saw that I was moving off camera there, so I had to move back over, something that you'll have to do a lot. Now, when it comes to your ironing, also remember to apply pressure when you are ironing. You're not going to be able to get very far if you just keep on lackadaisically going back and forth with the iron. Something else that I like to do with ironing that I won't show in this, otherwise this video would be like 20 minutes long, is I iron both sides of the fabric. So make sure you go back and do both sides. Hi, me! Okay, so moving on to laying down the pattern and actually putting all of the pieces on your fabric. A lot of patterns, if you are using a pattern base or something like what I'm doing, where I'm using this pattern that I got off of Simplicity. I was very lucky because this pattern just recently came out, and eventually I'll put a close-up to the camera about what it looks like, and you will find it has very striking resemblance to Bleach characters, which is what I decided to pull Inuyasha's costume off of the most. There was the most similarities off of this, and Simplicity is a fantastic pattern company. So first thing first, of course, we have to pull this all apart, big sheets of paper, and you have to go through and figure out all of the pieces that you will be needing for your pattern. Now, specifically for this pattern, I was following pattern C, I believe it was. Yeah, pattern C, and then the pants were pattern D. So one of the things that most patterns will give you is a little kind of table of contents as to which numbered patterns you will need. Okay, now coming up here, one thing that I wanted to point out specifically is that this pattern had two of what looked like the same piece. This one's number 4, and I need it for pattern C. So the first thing you'd think is, oh, I need this piece for that pattern. But notice that they only are used for the sizes of large and small. Large and small, large and small. So this other piece that looks the exact same is piece 4. I need it for C. Where did C go? Come back, C. Here you are. There's C. I need it for pattern C. And this one is for the sizing of extra small, medium, and extra large. So if you come across pieces like this, you have to be paying super close attention, because this is the piece I need because I am doing it off of a medium size. So you got to pay close attention to that. So carrying on, one thing that I do recommend highly if you are working with pieces and patterns and stuff like that is to do your best to keep super best track of all of the pieces you'll need as possible. Like I said, it'll come with a little kind of map out of all the pieces that you'll need for every single pattern. So you can kind of see I have my pen with me, and as I cut the piece I need, I'm putting a little check mark saying that I've cut that piece and I've put it in the pile of things I will need. And then anything I don't need, I just, clean it up, put it back in the bag, and it'll still be there for if I ever need it for the next time. So I don't need that piece there, so I put that away. So the next thing that you'll see me doing once I finish folding up this stuff and put it out of the way and into the next shot is what I actually had to do was I had to relay out my fabric. I assumed it went this way, but once I actually started to look at how it suggested I fold and lay out my pattern, I realized I had to refold my fabric, so that wasn't too big of a deal. Merlin, your butt is in the way. Go on. So one of the things that patterns will more often than not, hello kitty, will come with is that they will come with a kind of map as to how you should lay out your pattern in order to save the most fabric. What's the best and most efficient way to do it? Now, I have found in the past that some patterns you can sometimes find more clever ways to lay out your pattern and save fabric in ways that the map might not have seen. And that's not a bad thing at all, it's just something that I have noticed in past patterns. But using the actual map is always a very good way of how to start out and how to kind of get an idea of what you're going to need. Something else to keep very careful track of when it comes to your patterns is the grain line for one, which is what that little arrow was. So the little lines that go up and down shows you which way the grain line is, and that's kind of which way that your pattern, the stitching runs. It's kind of hard to explain, but something that you're seeing me here do real quick. I usually don't do it on the floor. I usually do it on my ironing board, but my laptop, which is recording this, is actually on my ironing board right now. So something that you saw me do is I actually like to, with a very, very low setting of heat, iron out my paper pattern pieces. Try saying that 5 times fast. I find that it especially helps getting rid of the wrinkles and creases, and especially when patterns are folded for a really long time, it can be a little hard to lay them flat when they're folded so much. Okay, so after I got everything laid out here, what was I saying earlier? I was saying that something that you also want to keep very careful track of is the cat. He just got in my way. He decided now was the time to play, so he just decided to run through. If you have cats, I suggest putting them in a bedroom or locking them up somewhere, because they will find now is the time to get in your way. So I had to re-smooth everything out, and that's very important as well, as smoothing out your pattern. Make sure everything is laying flat, because nothing is worse than finding out that not be the case. So there's a ball on the pattern. This is going to end very badly. Wait for it. Yep, there it is. Okay, that was the last straw. I definitely put him in my room after that because he was deciding now was the time to play, and it wasn't being very helpful. So this is actually a really good chance for me to show you what to happen if, say, you accidentally cut a pattern wrong, or in this case, your cat runs over it and tears your pattern. It's really, really simple. You just need Scotch tape. It's super, super easy. There's no magic to it, nothing fancy about it. Just pretty much lay it down flat. I keep saying fat. And you're pretty much just going to very, very carefully take your time with it, line it all back up, and put a little bit of Scotch tape on it. I prefer Scotch tape over masking tape or even painter's tape because you can see through it and it just looks a little bit cleaner. But any kind of tape works. You want to use electrical tape, you go for it. Duct tape, I wouldn't recommend it, but you're more than welcome to try. So there we go. Yay, it's all fixed. Now I gotta put that back over there. So like I keep on trying to say is that one of the things that you do want to keep super good track of while you are doing these and looking at your pattern pieces is to make sure that you are cutting out the right number of pieces. A lot of pieces will obviously want you to cut out 2 pieces per pattern piece because you kind of want to do it like a little bit of a book technique is what you'll kind of be doing, where you'll sew 2 things together and open it up to make one big piece. So if some pieces though even might want you to be cutting specifically on a fold line, and like I said, that's not something I want to get into because it's an entire thing unto itself, but you want to be very, very careful when you're placing and pinning and cutting that you are paying close attention to all those small little cutting instructions, because cut once and if you've made a mistake, you're screwed and kind of have to start all over. So This is me just now pinning things. Obviously something you're going to see me doing is constantly moving the pattern, rubbing it down with my hands, smoothing it out, smoothing it out, smoothing it out. From time to time I will pin something and find that something's just not lying quite flat, and you have to unpin the whole thing and repin it again. So something that I suggest doing is kind of just pin every so often. Don't feel that you have to pin it down the first time to make sure it will never move. That's not, don't have to do that the first time. Just pin it so that everything is where you want it to be and lays flat, and then go back and pin it a little bit more closely to one another so that it won't move while you're cutting, because nothing is worse than having your fabric decide to go and see what's going on over there and move on its own while you're cutting it, because then you are definitely in trouble with that. So something else that happened while I was pinning all of my pieces, because I won't show you, obviously this is only the first part of the insane amount of pattern laying that I had to do. This was the easiest one, so I figured I'd show it to you because it had the least amount of pieces. Something that I kept having be a little bit of a problem and a hiccup was that a lot of my pieces didn't fit quite like the map suggested, because my fabric was not as wide as it wanted the pattern to be, if that makes sense. So a lot of the times with patterns, what'll happen is they'll give you two different sets of measurements and layouts, and this depends on how wide your fabric is. Usually for simplicity, it's a 115 or 150 centimeter width. My pattern was just shy of 115, so things just fit a little bit more snug. Also, you gotta remember to have fun when you're doing this. Don't try to be too serious all the time. You got your music playing, dance around with it a little bit. So once I took a look at everything and made sure everything was laid the way I wanted it to, and everything looked flat and everything was nice, then we go into the cutting phase. Now, something I suggest you do while cutting, and this is just a personal thing that I've begun to do, it's not something anybody has ever taught me or told me to do, nice but me, I totally forgot where the camera was that when you cut just a little bit off of the line it's suggesting you to cut on. I don't like cutting right on the line, because my biggest fear is that something will be just cut a little bit too small and won't fit nicely. If it's cut just a little bit too big, I can always trim it down and that won't be a problem, but if it's cut too small, then I have to recut the piece, and when you have very limited fabric, this is a very big problem. Okay, so something that I had to stop and actually pay attention to here was that there was this great big attention block and text on this pattern piece that I had to really take a look at and figure out. At first I thought it was part of the C pattern I needed, but it turned out that that pattern piece on the second half of the pattern was for pattern A, I believe. It just made the robe longer, and I didn't need it that long, so in the end I decided I didn't need it, so I didn't cut it to the length of the A pattern. I cut it to the length of the B pattern. So this is, again, all very important. Make sure you read everything, you're paying super close attention. This was the first video. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh my god, that was only one part of pinning and cutting. I had to do the second part after that, and it was a lot of work. So I hope you guys are already starting to enjoy this. I'm hoping to record a lot more of the process of making my Inuyasha cosplay, and I hope you enjoy it. It'll be a little bit better than my Merida, because Merida's cosplay journals were a little less interesting. Even I will admit to that. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check in on Tuesdays when Andrew usually uploads, or Fridays when I, Sarah, upload if I do not get too distracted with making this cosplay. So anyway, until next time, geek on! Cosplay on, right? That's what we're doing whenever it's the cosplay ones. Cosplay on.